Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Friday, October 1st. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. The Rutgers game is in one day, the game against Michigan in 57 days. The Buckeyes will be traveling to New Jersey a little later on today. Buckeye Scoop will be as well. Tony Gerderman, Kevin Noon, and I will be at Rutgers this evening. We'll be doing tomorrow's morning show from campus and are tentatively planning to do a live question and answer session on YouTube from there tonight as well. The best way to make sure you don't miss out on that is to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/BuckeyeScoop. If you're on YouTube already, you can just hit the little bell. That'll notify you as soon as we go live tonight, and then you can be a part of our live Q&A session from Rutgers. One of the things we will undoubtedly be talking about on that show is the quarterback position. CJ Stroud took last weekend off to rest his sore shoulder. Kyle McCord and Jack Miller both look pretty decent, but you get the sense from talking to Ryan Day this week that he still views Stroud as the best option they have. Thursday, he more or less confirmed that Stroud would be starting at Rutgers, but with Kyle McCord and Jack Miller now having some game reps under their belt for the season, what is Day's comfort level with Jack and Kyle playing if needed?
I think it goes a long way that these guys now have been in games before, so that's good. We still have to play more to have a body of work, but it's good for them to have a reference point of what the consequences are of doing something or not doing something, or the rewards from preparing or not preparing, or whatever those things are, because you don't quite really understand what it is in practice until you get into a game. And some good lessons learned there. And anytime we can do that, we want to do that and make sure those guys get those reps. When it's appropriate, we will. But CJ's had a good week of practice and looking forward to Saturday.
The Buckeyes are a little bit short-handed at linebacker right now after the transfers of Dallas Gant and Kayvon Pope. One thing that has kind of been a saving grace for them is a couple of guys who have kind of come in from sort of seemingly out of nowhere to be contributors this year. One of them is linebacker EA guy Nyote Ote, who transferred in from USC. He's sort of playing a little bit of a role in short yardage situations, but also Steele Chambers. He was already on the roster, of course, but he was a running back instead of a linebacker until this summer. So what was the process like to move him from running back to linebacker? And when did Brian Day sort of get the sense that, hey, this guy might be a pretty good linebacker and might really be able to help us out? Here's what Day had to say about that.
It was something that we brought up with he and his family during the recruiting process, that this is something that we may visit along the way if again, appropriate. And we brought it to his attention this spring. I think that everybody, in the program felt like he could be a good linebacker. Now, you have to really embrace it. That's a big decision. And so, he kind of went over there and split time, and then, felt like this is something he wanted to embrace. And like you said, you have to embrace it. You can't be forced into a situation like this. But what a great decision by him. And we're very fortunate that this has worked out, because he's really, in a short period of time, he's grown. Certainly not a finished product, but I think he's got a very bright future ahead of him if he continues to work on the path that he's on and continue to build. Because there's been some things that I've seen out of him that, I think are special. So I'm excited to see him continue to work and build. Again, has been playing the position very long. And so the more reps he gets, the better he's going to be.
There are a lot of new faces in the starting lineup these days for Ohio State and in the role of contributors across the field. But one of the names that I think most people are immediately thinking when I say that is running back TreVeyon Henderson. He has been an immediate sensation. He was someone who came in with a lot of recruiting hype, had a lot of hype throughout spring camp, throughout fall camp, immediately made an impact in his first career game at Minnesota, and has just sort of built on that and gotten better and better every week since. So what is the next step in his development? Here's what Ryan Day had to say about that.
I don't know. I mean, I think that, we're 4 games in, and we're going to continue to learn more as the time goes on. But he needs to first off just focus on taking care of that football. That's the first thing. He's got to take care of, the little things in terms of protection, making the right reads and preparing, just like everybody else. You can see his ability to, like you said, to be special and take the ball, from the second level to the third level to score a touchdown, and he's a home run threat, and that's good. But that doesn't work without our offensive line. I mean, I think he understands how important this is. It's team football. And, whether it's covering Chris and Garrett on the outside or the offensive line blocking up front, this is a team effort. And I think our offense is embracing that. I think we're unselfish. And I think they understand that in order for us to be good on offense, we have to be balanced. But, again, this is just a start for him. He's 4 games in. I think he's better now than he was 4 weeks ago. And I think the whole running back room is too. And I think it's got to be a strength for us as we move forward. But we'll see. Still got a long season ahead of us, and so we'll keep growing on it.
This year's freshman class has been a much bigger impact on this team than your typical freshman class would be. And there's probably a lot of reasons for that. The upper class talent maybe is not quite what it necessarily has been at every point in previous years, but also just the talent of the class, including Henderson, but plenty of other guys as well. But that's just one reason they've been far bigger contributors than a typical group of true freshmen at Ohio State. Tony Gerderman asked Day about that on Thursday. Here's what Day had to say.
When you combine maturity and talent and production, then you have something special. And I'm excited to say that I see that in some of these guys, which is great. Not just the young guys. See it in a lot of our guys. See it in some of the older guys, some of the experienced players who have been around, and that's great. But it is exciting to know, that the future is really, really bright when you have talented young men who have maturity and have a seriousness and a focus and an approach. Like some of the guys on our team, and that's exciting. And there's obviously some mentoring that's going on right now across the board for these guys, and that's great. And so the more we can build on that, again, the brighter the future is going to be.
Earlier this week, I got a chance to ask Ryan Day about one of my favorite topics to yell about on Twitter: how decisions get made on fourth down. Are you going for it? Are you kicking a field goal? Are you punting? The consensus there is definitely changing at this point, kind of across the sport. You have guys like Jim Harbaugh going for it on 4th and 1 on his own side of the field, which never would have happened 15 years ago. And, plenty of coaches passing up field goals to try and convert a 4th and 4 or a 4th and 5, something like that. So I asked Dave, when you're making that decision, when you're on the sideline and you're looking at it and it's 4th and 2 and you're at the 17-yard line, what goes into that decision for you?
Yeah, I think there's a lot that goes into that, and certainly have studied all the analytics that go with that. Certainly when I was in the NFL and now in college, but there's so many things that come into play, like where you are in the game, where you are field position wise. Does it make sense to punt and just gain 15, 20 yards, or if you get a touchback, are the 3 points really worth it in that moment, or do you feel like it's a higher scoring game and you got to get a touchdown? But I think the other part that's important is, do you have a good play? It's one thing to go for it. It's another thing to know you have a good play in that moment. It's 4th and 2 on the plus 35-yard line, and you feel really confident this play is going to work, or man, I don't have much here, we better punt. And I think that all those things come into play for sure.
There are companies that do professional analytics, like championship analytics, for example, producers like binders for schools. Do you guys have a source for that kind of stuff? Is that stuff you produce internally? Is that, how do you generate those decisions?
Yeah, we study that internally here for sure. And I think that, you look at those numbers and you look at the statistics, but there's so many different variables at play when you're talking about situations like that. I do think, when you're in the NFL where everybody's pretty much equal and everybody has the same set of, situation, then that's one thing. But I think in college, there's just a lot of different dynamics. The conferences, the situations are just very, very different. And I think so much of it has to do with, your team, how you think the game is going and feel. But there's also some times you got to look at the numbers on it to say, when is it worth punting? When is it worth going for it?
A little later on in that press conference on Tuesday, Doug Lesmerises of Cleveland.com had a really interesting follow-up on that and wanted to include that in here as well. You'll hear his question first and then Ryan Day's answer.
I think we could ask you 50 questions about fourth down decision-making because it could be so fascinating. Sometimes in a world where it feels like you need 7s to win games these days, 3s aren't going to win you many games anymore. Can a punt in the right situation be more aggressive than a long field goal? If you think, we're going to punt them down, pin them inside the 5, stop them, get it back, and try for another 7.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the whole idea of the playing to win and playing the field position game is exactly what you just said. But you have to execute it, and then you actually have to stop them, and then you have to get the ball back. Those are the things you consider when you're making those decisions. Yeah.
We also got a chance to talk to a handful of players this week. Those midweek interviews are always interesting because reporters are trying to get answers to questions about the team that the players don't always want to give. So, you're rarely going to have a player surprise you with something like, yeah, that guy's not practicing this week because he's hurt. Like that doesn't happen. But it means a lot of times the most interesting answers are about off the field stuff rather than schematic stuff or about the upcoming opponent or that week's lineup or whatever. That was definitely the case this week. TreVeyon Henderson had some very interesting thoughts on money. You typically think of college football players as people who are going to be spending money on fancy cars or jewelry or whatever. Henderson has a very different perspective. So you're going to hear from him on that. And then you're going to hear from Ryan Day about his impressions of Henderson's investment mindset.
Since I was little, like I always just thought about money, like just not growing up for much, and just having that drive to like wanting to get money. Like my mama say, like I'm growing gray hair because she used to say I used to just stress a lot. All I think about is money. But once I got here, like, well, over COVID in high school, like I spent my time reading books about wealth and stuff. So like once I got here, I knew a lot about like the way that money works. So I started investing in like stocks and things like that, making my money work for me once I got here.
So Trey has a portfolio.
Oh yeah.
How's it doing with the NIL and everything? Good time to start as a freshman, right?
Oh yeah, like I started way before. Like once I got here, as soon as I got here, I started investing, and like now, I've been had a lot of money in stocks, but like with this NIL stuff, I got way more money to work with now.
Well, I am aware that he likes to invest his money. It was probably in the springtime. I walked by one of the hot or cold tubs, and he was in there on his phone. And usually the guys are, on social media, listening to music or watching videos. He was checking the stock market. I think at the time he had bought Tesla with some of the money that he got from a scholarship check, I believe. And we talked about that for a little while. And he was very upset that Tesla at that time had gone down a little bit. So he lost a little bit of money that week. And I just thought that was pretty neat. I hadn't really heard much about that. I know Sam Hubbard maybe did that a few years ago. But even for a young guy to take that money and invest moving forward is, pretty forward thinking and very mature for a young man. So, that's part of the deal is investing in your future. It's not what you make, it's what you save. And, we're just impressed by that whole interaction.
Earlier this week, we also chatted with Garrett Wilson. Day had mentioned him as someone who had gotten up and spoken in front of the team as they're sort of looking for new vocal leaders to sort of lead this year's team. He said Wilson had not only done it, but been very impressive while doing it. So here's what Wilson had to say about that.
Yeah, as far as vocally leading, that's never been a role I take on. I've, tried to take on, whether it was high school or now, but, I'm still someone that I feel like if there's something that needs to be said, I'll say it, So, I've never backed down from, how I feel, stuff like that. And, I didn't feel like we played good enough against Tulsa. So I thought that, the score was misleading, and I thought, just how it felt being out there playing the game, it didn't feel good. So, I just wanted to, let everyone know that we have a standard here and it's our job to uphold it. Each week we take the field, and I didn't feel like we did that. So that's all that was. But, I just try to lead by action more than vocally. But, I feel like something needs to be said.
Have you seen a response to that from your guys?
No, I definitely have. I feel like most of the team, embrace that, and they know it too, though. They know it too. They know when it doesn't feel right. So it was really just someone getting up there and saying it.
We will be at Rutgers a little later on tonight. We'll be driving out there throughout the day. We'll have probably may have it do some kind of a chat on the Ask the Insiders board at BuckeyeScoop.com. There is not a lot going on across the great state of Pennsylvania, so we may have time to do a little bit of a chat with Kevin Noon and Tony Gerderman and I as we are driving through southern Pennsylvania. But then later tonight, we are planning, unless something changes, we are planning to do a live Q&A show from Rutgers sometime this evening. I don't have a clue on the time yet. We got to figure out our drive. We got to figure out when we're getting there, all that kind of stuff. So the best way to make sure that you find out when we're doing it and when we go live and to be a part of that conversation is to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're watching this on YouTube, just hit the bell or hit the little Buckeye Scoop circular logo that will pop up at the end of this video. And if you're not watching on YouTube, then just go to youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop, subscribe to our channel there. All that's going to do is that's going to give you a little pop-up whenever we post a new video, whenever we start going live for a pregame show or a postgame show or a live Q&A show like we're planning to do tonight. You'll just get a little pop-up on your screen that says, hey, Buckeye Scoop is going live. Do you want to watch? And if you want to watch, just click there. Boom. No waiting, no refreshing the page. It's just right there on your phone. And you will be able to be a part of that conversation, be a part of that show anytime you want to. And if you don't want to, then you go on with your day and I didn't miss anything that I wanted to see. So that is the best way to make sure you don't miss anything on our YouTube channel. And the best way to make sure you don't miss anything at BuckeyeScoop.com is to subscribe today, become a member, and get access to our fantastic team of insiders and our Ask the Insiders board. Lots of great content you just can't find anywhere else in the Ohio State internet. That's all at BuckeyeScoop.com. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.